Hi, YouTube.
Hey, YouTube friends and family, it's your boy GB Reviews, and I haven't done a review of a movie or a television show in a while, but I had to do a review of the new Star Wars film, The Rise of Skywalker. And the reason I felt like I had to do a review is not because there's not going to be a dearth of reviews out there. I think there's probably tons of people reviewing the movie and kind of panning it. There's critics saying that they don't like it. There's some of our better known YouTubers out there talking about how they don't like it. Definitely fans are saying how they like it. Some say they like it and some say they don't like it. But I wanted to reserve my judgment of the film for when I watched it, and I wanted to really give an honest assessment of the film. My goal in this review is to try not to put too many spoilers in there that will lead to revealing too much of the plot, even though I think people have heard a lot of the plot, and I think it's just a lot out on the internet, because I think people are just kind of frustrated in many ways. When I look at the film, I saw it today, and my older son saw it before me, and he said it was all right. And he is not what I would consider a diehard Star Wars fan by any stretch of the imagination. He's a person who just likes films, and he said it was all right. And so from his kind of lack of enthusiasm when he said that, I kind of knew what I was going to expect, but I wasn't sure what I was going to expect. So my thing is, I'm a fan of Star Wars, but I would not say I'm a diehard Star Wars fan. I'm not a person who's collecting action figures, and I'm not dressing up as Star Wars for cosplay or Halloween or anything like that. But as a kid, I enjoyed the film. As a young adult, when the new trilogy came out, I waited in line for the movies, and it was an experience. Star Wars was an experience. It was part of kind of the things that excited me. I stayed in line for, I think, over 24 hours for when the episode 1 came out. And, watching the third trilogies, Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and then finally The Rise of Skywalker, I definitely had my opinions about the films. And there are things that I definitely, like for me, I totally hated The Last Jedi. I thought The Last Jedi was a horrible film. And again, I'm putting this out there. I thought it was a horrible film. I thought the fight scene in the throne room was weird. I thought, the thing with Snoke, I thought that was weird. I thought, Princess Leia or General Leia flying through space, I thought that was weird. There were some things with Luke Skywalker that a lot of things with Luke Skywalker I thought was weird. And I had no expectations really that it was going to be fixed in this film, but I'd heard some of the leaks and people were saying, well, they tried to do these fixes and things like that. That being said, I also saw some of the reviews that the critics came out with, and they, had a user critic rating of about 56%, and the critics were saying, the film was ruined because of fan service. And I thought about that, especially after watching it and kind of dissecting it and just really just mulling over what they said about that. And I would say that critics who said that, I don't know if they're pandering to the studios or whatever, but critics saying that the studio gave us a poorly constructed movie or a poorly done movie because they're trying to appease the fans is, to me, like saying a person who is abused by their spouse or someone who's victimized by whatever. It's the victim's fault, right? Fans, for whatever reason, you can say fans are the people that you're trying to please, and that may be true, but ultimately it is the studio's responsibility to deliver a good film, right? So to say that the fans caused this to be a poor film shows me the lack of integrity in some of the critics, in the sense that they don't want to criticize Disney Studios. They don't want to really criticize the directors of these films, and that is unfortunate. My concern about this film, and again, is that I would say that J.J. Abrams really tried to fix some things in a way that didn't even make any sense, and answer questions, because this is, I think, his kind of thing. He answers them in a way that he thinks, oh, well, yeah, it's wrapped up. Congratulations. Yay, people understand this now. And they don't make any sense. The criticisms that actors and actresses get, I think, it's unnecessarily harsh, that people criticize, Daisy Ridley for being Mary Sue or being OP or whatever. That's not her fault. I think that she was an actress given a script, and she tried to work that script as best she could. Now, that being said, I don't particularly think that she's a very good actress. Or I shouldn't say that. Let me take that back. I don't think that she's a very experienced actress that has a lot of range. And that's not to say that Mark Hamill deserved an Oscar for his, in the original trilogy, for being Luke Skywalker. But I could believe that Mark Hamill was a nerf herder from Tatooine, and he grew throughout the course of the 3 films to become a person who could possibly be a Jedi, right? I remember as a kid watching A New Hope, which wasn't even called A New Hope. I don't remember it being called New Hope. But anyway, when I was a kid, and really feeling like the desolation of Tatooine and the boredom of, Luke Skywalker's life, because it dragged on, and that was intentional. And George Lucas did a great job with that. I think he did an excellent job just dragging it on and saying, oh, this is what his life is like. And I could believe that character arc. Luke Skywalker started, and he was just a regular kid, and then, under some mentorship, and he left the planet reluctantly. He didn't want to leave his relatives, and I believe that arc. That being said, Mark Hamill was okay. A believable Luke. I'm not giving him the Oscar, and I say that not to criticize Mark Hamill, but just to say that you don't have to be a great actor to be given a role that is believable. Now we go back to Daisy Ridley, and again, I think people were very, very harsh in their criticisms of her when she doesn't write the script. If she is a Mary Sue, as people say, that's not her fault. That's just what she's been given to work with. And all these other characters that they criticize, and we'll talk a little bit about that. When I saw The Force Awakens, and people might, again, fans didn't necessarily like the film because they thought that, it just mirrored A New Hope, and that's fine. And I think looking back on it, if fans could fast forward it, they would probably actually appreciate if all the films just mirrored the original trilogy. Because The Force Awakens was actually, looking back on it, was a good film. And I say that not to say that the story was great or anything like that, but more so that it seemed like at least there was a plan for that film. And people are gonna hate me for saying this, but I actually now, looking back on it, and I again, I'm gonna say I hate The Last Jedi, but I thought The Last Jedi was a better film than The Rise of Skywalker. And let me get into that. So let's start. We're going to start from the beginning, but I may give out some spoilers, but not spoilers that will ruin the plot if you haven't seen it yet. The opening scroll, when they give you the text and they say, this all happened. I'm still unsure about how much time has passed in the universe from when the Last Jedi happened, or excuse me, when the Force Awakens happened to the Rise of Skywalker. I have no idea. I mean, maybe months, maybe a year. I'm not sure, because the way that it seems like it happens, you may either assume that everything happened in 2 weeks, or you may assume that things happened over several years, but you can't tell. One, because Daisy Ridley never changes clothes, and I get it. In Star Wars, they never changed clothes. The original Star Wars trilogy, they really didn't change clothes. And maybe in the second trilogy, they didn't really change clothes. But they had uniforms, right? Like I shouldn't say uniform. Like Jedi wore certain things, and so I could believe that Anakin had 20 sets of outfits because he was a Padawan and he looked like that every day, and Obi-Wan looked like that every day. Daisy Ridley had the same clothes on that she had on when they discovered her as a person, as a scavenger on her planet, and that didn't make any sense to me. And again, that's just a petty detail, but that's something that people don't really talk about, and I just thought that was just kind of weird. Also, they, I think J.J. Abrams and the studio tried to address the fact that people were calling Daisy Ridley a Mary Sue or whatever, in terms of showing that she was doing training. But again, in the original trilogy, Mark Hamill had a lot of training. At least it seemed that way. The way that the time was set up, and even the way he aged, and the time period between the films, there was a sense of time progressing and him training. Out the gates, they show her doing something that probably none of the Jedis except for Jedi Masters were doing in the second trilogy, right? And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. She's amazing. But the thing that I thought was more, again, I'm not saying where this happened in the film, but it did happen in the film. The thing that I thought was more distressing is that there was a scene in the movie where Poe Dameron says, where's Rey? She's our best fighter, or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, would a seasoned, at no time in the other trilogy did people refer to Luke Skywalker as the best fighter. And they said Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and those guys, they needed them, right? For whatever reason. They had plans, they had powers, whatever. At no time would they say that that he was the best fighter. And I'm thinking, Poe Dameron, why would he think that she's, from what we saw from the last couple of films, yeah, they defeated a few people, and she's an intuitive pilot and an intuitive tinkerer and an intuitive Jedi and an intuitive Force user and all these other things. But has he really been around her enough to think that out of all the people in the Resistance, she is the best fighter? And that's the person that they need the most when it comes to just pure fighting. I thought that was weird, and it wasn't forced in a way where I thought people were like trying to do like like kind of this social justice warrior piece of making more diversity or making women more powerful. I didn't see anything like that. I just thought it was just bad dialogue writing. I mean, like, it just didn't make any sense. I don't care if Daisy Ridley or Rey is the most powerful Jedi in the universe. I don't see a person who's super experienced and a super seasoned Resistance member doing that. It just didn't make any sense. They did, so positives, let's throw that out. The positives that they did, they improved the comedy and the humor. I thought it was done definitely better. It wasn't trying to be Marvel-esque. It was more so natural comedy that might happen in a dialogue with you and your friends. And I thought that was good. And I thought they did a better job with John Boyega's character. I thought Finn was done very well. Or I should, not necessarily very well, but he was done much better than he had been presented in the last two films, except for maybe the first half of The Force Awakens, right? Because they did that, or not even the first half, the first 25% of The Force Awakens, where he was actually done very well, and he seemed like a tragic figure who was going through an awakening, which I thought was good. And this one, he was more enjoyable to watch. This film I thought was, again, interesting in the sense that they tried to close a lot of the plot holes that people kind of pointed out before. Did they do a good job at that? No, because they left more plot holes by trying to close some of those plot holes, and in a sense didn't make any sense. Like, and everybody knows the Emperor's there, so that's not really a spoiler. But the Emperor really came out of nowhere, and that didn't make any sense to me. And again, this is another spoiler, but you've seen all the ships. the fact that they had so many Star Destroyers, and we know from scale and stuff like that in Star Wars canon how big these ships are supposed to be. I don't care how many ships the Empire is able to make. You also have to have crews for these ships, unless they have robots, and they didn't say that, or they didn't allude to that. It would be like the United States increasing our military. Say somehow we had some kind of secret warfare program, and we increased our size of our military by 1,000%, right? Again, this is what was said in the movie. Where would we get the people to join that military and be conscripted in that military without cloning? And they didn't talk about that. Where would you get the people to man all those ships without anybody knowing? Because the premise is that this is a secretly made new army for the Sith or whatever. And I thought that was just kind of weird. And I thought what I did think was interesting, I guess, about the film is that they, talked about holocrons and Sith things and stuff like that. And that was kind of cool, I guess. The Knights of Ren throwaway. People had talked about the Knights of Ren being Force users and things like that. To me, I just thought that they could have been better purpose. Like, it would have been better to leave them out of the film. And I'm not going to talk about what happened to them in the film, or what they did in the film, but more so it would have been better to leave them out of the film and maybe had a separate Star Wars show about it. Like, like The Mandalorian, you could just do the Knights of Ren or something like that. It would have just been more interesting to me. They didn't have, the one thing I will say about this is they didn't have a stupid Canto Bight kind of side story. I mean, the side stories that they did have, I felt that they were relevant and necessary to move the plot along. The way that they integrated Carrie Fisher's character in the story was respectful, given the fact that she's dead. I thought it was actually done better. And it's interesting. I thought her acting in this movie, even though she's passed away and she had filmed those scenes before, I think the way that they edited the scenes that they used in the previous films didn't convey the fact that she actually was a decent actress. I'm not saying she's a great actress or even a good actress, but she was a decent actress. And I think the last two films made me think, wow, she's just not a very good actress. And that's unfortunate, because the scenes that I saw her in were done okay. The other things you'll find odd about the film is things like some of the decisions that they thought made sense to advance the plot, like putting horses on spaceships for no reason, and then having to find a need to use those horses. Like, why would you put horses on spaceships? To bring them where? I mean, unless you're evacuating a planet, but that didn't seem like that was the case. And so I thought that was kind of strange. I thought it was strange to... the other thing I thought was strange is there were some fight scenes that were in space, but I wasn't sure if they were in space or if they were in a planet's atmosphere. But if they were in a planet, it just didn't make any sense. There was just a lot of things that just didn't make any sense. And again, I'm trying. I was trying with this film. I really was trying not to. And I don't. Again, when I say I hate The Last Jedi, I did hate The Last Jedi because it defied my belief that someone could just ruin a movie so badly. This movie, I didn't hate it. I just didn't enjoy it. I felt myself falling asleep in the theater because I just thought it was overly long, and there was just so much stuff crammed into the movie that I just was not interested. I was like, wow, okay, that is just not very interesting. And yeah, it was yeah, I just thought it was very interesting. The Ray character, I thought, again, I'm going back to Ray only because it's not the actress's fault. It's just the character, the way the character's written. It probably is one of the most unoriginal characters that I've seen in at least their character arc. In terms of the story, she's original, and I thought that I really appreciated her in The Force Awakens. By the time I got to the end of this movie, I was just like, ugh, God, her acting is just not very good. And there was nothing endearing. Like, there were scenes in the movie where it's supposed to be sad, and I didn't find myself sad. When Luke Skywalker's family got killed in the first Star Wars movie, in the original trilogy, I felt something. I got more emotionally, to be honest, I got more emotionally involved in the Mulan trailer that I saw in the beginning before the movie started. All the scenes where people were supposed to be sad were forced. There was a scene where Chewbacca was sad. That was forced. Oh, I am going to spoil this because this is just so silly. Like, if I tell you, the viewer, to go get someone that I can see out the window, and you walk right outside the door because you're supposed to get that person, and that person's still right outside the window because I'm still inside, I can see that person, I told you to go outside to get them. How do you get captured? That doesn't make any sense. And I get it. For the plot, you need to be captured so the person can go save them and do some miraculous thing. Doesn't make any sense. J.J. Abrams, that I don't know who's writing for you. I'm not gonna criticize you because you're rich, and I don't know how hard it is to do your job. I mean, I could criticize you because you're rich, but whatever. I don't know how hard it is to do your job, and I think we are quick to criticize directors versus just saying the process. Whoever was in the room with him, I don't think he's sitting in a room by himself writing the whole script. I think he's in a room with writers. I just think it was a poor decision to try to advance a plot. Didn't make any sense. Some of the other things that people had talked about before about the ship spacing and things like that. Yeah, you could tell that it's a computer generated thing. The formations that they have are just unless they, again, run by droids or computers, the ships were just in two geometric formation. And even ships jumping out of hyperspace, if we're really being honest, would ships jump out of hyperspace so close to one another just for the sake of it, especially when we know from the last film that hyperspace can be used as a weapon? Doesn't make sense. I really am just disappointed by this film in a way that just made me just disinterested in this film, not in Star Wars, because The Mandalorian is awesome. And I'm going to say that again. Oh, the other thing, it's another spoiler I got to throw out there because if I don't address it, I mean, other people will address it, but gosh, really? Like, again, I get it's a fictional universe, but man, I mean, distances don't mean anything in the Star Wars universe anymore. I mean, they can move around to places immediately, and then they make a point of telling you how difficult it is to get somewhere, but then the other person can get there super quickly. That didn't make any sense. And then I didn't realize the Force I didn't realize people could use the Force to teleport, and I'm glad Baby Yoda can heal things, and now Rey can heal things, and they put in some scenes where she's using these powers, but I didn't realize that you could like deliver gifts. I mean, she would be like the best DoorDash person because she could just deliver me food using the Force, because it obviously takes no effort to do that. And I thought it was just kind of interesting that was what they thought to go with in terms of advancing the plot. Again, congratulations to the actors and actresses in this film for really sticking it out and not getting overly frustrated. I think they did the best they could with what they had to work with. I really am thankful that Harrison Ford decided to make a guest appearance. Billy D. Williams did the best he could also with what he had. And you know, he was entertaining watching Billy D. Williams. Again, I want to say I would like to say that this was an entertaining film, but it wasn't. And that's the part that I think is sad. Even though, like I said, I hated The Last Jedi, it was entertaining in a way. It was a movie. I felt some excitement and suspense, even though I thought it was stupid in many ways. But I felt like, oh, okay. A lot of things didn't make sense, but this is supposed to be exciting and it matched the music or whatever. This film I felt was boring. And I thought Kylo Ren's mask, like, I don't know what the red things are for. When, you know, especially why they were glowing when they fixed his mask. That didn't make any sense. And there's a lot of things that didn't make any sense. And again, I consider myself a fan of Star Wars, not a diehard Star Wars fan. But I would say go watch it, see what you think. I was not impressed. I'm glad that Disney spent the money, I guess, to get this done and be over with. And this is a chapter that's closed. And I imagine, I mean, you don't hold me to this, but I imagine at some point in the future, many years from now, maybe 10 years or 15 years from now, these films will be considered not canon, and they will reboot this. This trilogy is the reason why they end up rebooting series. You know, if people really, I mean, if studios can reboot things like Superman, and I thought Superman, it wasn't bad. The Superman, not before the Man of Steel, but the Superman that had the guy that's in Legends in it. If people rebooted that from just that kind of, they thought that movie sucked, then they will end up rebooting this because they can't let this stand as canon. I mean, they could, but it just totally ruins the Star Wars universe. Because now in The Mandalorian, I just have to think that they're just awesome people about to just deliver food using the Force. That's it for my review. I had to give this review. I was gonna wait, but then I was just like, I saw this movie and it just didn't sit right with me. So, I would say I'm not gonna tell you not to go see it because I think it's something that you might appreciate if you just like seeing good effects. The effects are good. The scene, the sets, or I should say the landscapes that they use were kind of amazing. Some of the ocean scenes. Some of the things didn't make any sense. And there's people in the film that you didn't even probably know that were in the film. But like, you know, but they come up on the credits, and that's kind of interesting that they brought back some of the folks that from some of the original movies. And I thought that was kind of cool. Again, yeah, it's unfortunate that Carrie Fisher passed away. I think they could have done something better. I mean, something more with her character. And but I think they used her in a respectful and appropriate way. Anyway, it's your boy GB Reviews. Please let me know what you think of this movie if you've seen it. Please leave your likes or dislikes down below, comments, hit the notification bell. That's my review. I'm gonna say that with before I close it out, because I didn't really say. So I like The Last Jedi better than this movie, and I hated The Last Jedi, but I don't hate this movie. I was just bored by this movie. So that's my review of this movie. It is just not very well done, and I think it's kind of boring. And Daisy Ridley doesn't really deserve your hate. She's just not a very complex actress, and I don't think she has a lot of experience to have the range of that people were expecting. And I think that she didn't have a lot to work with. So thank you for putting up with the abuse that people are giving you, and thank you for taking this role. I hope this leads to bigger roles for you. And I think, over time, if they, don't reset this universe and they bring you back for another trilogy or something like that, I think just demand that a director gives you more to work with. I think the only way they could have saved this was bringing in Steven Spielberg or someone of that caliber of directing to be able to save it. They should have done that. Steven Spielberg could have saved this. Steven Spielberg, if you're listening, please come back. Please do the trilogy before you pass away, because they need someone of your caliber to fix this. Even Michael Bay. I mean, my goodness, Michael Bay could have done better than this. Anyway, it's your boy GB Reviews. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. You're listening to my rant. It was a review, but it's probably more of a rant. Again, I don't hate this film. I was just bored by this film. Please subscribe, like below, hit the notification bell, and this is your boy GB Reviews. I will catch you next time. I'm out.
Subscribe right below.